Hello, and welcome to this month's episode of Pro Spotlight, where we feature our tax pros, the people that keep Taxfyle running. I'm Christian Ortega, and on this episode we have Curtis Patalano, one of our pros who lives in Franklin, Massachusetts. Curtis, how are you?
I'm very good. How are you, Christian?
I'm doing good, thank you for asking. So, Curtis, how long have you been an accountant?
I've been an accountant. I've been a CPA for 28 years.
And what is it that drew you to the career?
It's just something I've always been drawn to. I took a class in high school that got me interested, and I pursued it in college. And then afterwards, in a family business we had, I started working with the CPAs, and I decided I just would take that on as a career path.
What kind of work did you did with those CPAs, and what was the moment that you understood that this is the right fit for what you want to do with your career?
Well, that was almost immediately. I was an accountant, a private accountant in my family business, and I had to prepare reports for our company CPAs. And their job, I was always envious of their jobs, and I wanted to know more about it. So I asked them a lot of questions, and that's how I started my career.
When you graduated college, what was it like stepping out into the professional world?
It was exciting. By my senior year in high school, I was tired of school and I wanted to start working. It was exciting to start a new path.
So, what has your career been like since graduating college?
Well, I started in a family business, and then I went into public accounting. I started part time, and during that time, I also became a lawyer. So I got my law degree later in life, but my passion was always accounting, and I always came back to that.
What drew you to TaxFile?
So I was taking a class, a CPE, and I got an email from my provider that mentioned TaxFile and said that they were looking for certified public accountants to work for this company, and I pursued it. I clicked on the link. I asked for more information, and I went through a background check. I got more information, and it was something. It sounded like it was tailor made for me.
What made you feel like being a TaxFile tax professional was the right fit for what you wanted in your career?
Well, there were so many reasons. I had my own accounting firm, and I wasn't doing the tax work that I enjoyed. I was mostly doing administrative work. So, with TaxFile, I can prepare taxes myself, which is my passion. I can work on my own schedule. I don't have to. I don't have to set up fees. The clients are diverse. I really enjoy working with the different client base. To me, it's all an advantage of working with TaxFile.
What are some of the other benefits that you've come to appreciate by being a part of our pro network?
Well, as far as on the professional end, other than working on my own schedule, I don't have to drum up business. Accountants are not very good at that for the most part. I don't have to set fees. I don't have to collect fees. I can just prepare taxes and engage with clients and do what I do best. So that's mainly, those are the biggest benefits I find with TaxFile.
What is it about the field of taxes and preparing and filing tax returns that you enjoy so much?
Well, I think it's a complex, someone who doesn't prepare taxes, it's quite complicated learning the tax laws. And for me, it's finding out, meeting a client for the first time, and maybe that client knows nothing about taxes. And by the end of it, we've developed a relationship, and I've hopefully explained what I'm doing. And I'm taking all of their documents and finding the best tax for them. The lowest tax with the biggest benefit. And for me, that's a challenge, and it's also something I really enjoy.
What aspects do you think you have that makes you such an adept tax filer?
Well, I'm very organized, and I love taxation. So, loving something, for me anyway, I research it more, and it becomes more of a hobby for me. And I try to learn as much as I can, stay up to date, and by preparing so many taxes, I can, when there's someone in a similar situation, it's a lot easier for me to come up with a plan for them because I've done it before.
And when you say that, you've kind of fallen in love with taxes, when you think about your relationship with that part of the accounting industry, what do you love the most?
Well, I guess I love the actual preparation. I love taking a pile of source documents that a client might give me and turn it into a complete and accurate tax return. A person who does this needs to be organized, and I sort of pride myself in that. I can cover a lot of ground and do a lot of work in a short amount of time because of my organization skills, and that's basically what I enjoy about tax prep.
And there are a lot of areas of tax prep that are complicated and nuanced. What individual fields or niches do you specialize in, or do you appreciate doing the most?
Well, that's hard to say. As far as individual taxation, I guess my favorite type of client has a somewhat complicated tax situation. Maybe they have a rental property, or they are partners or shareholders in a corporation, or maybe they have their own small business. And so I enjoy learning more about the clients, and then also trying to figure out the best way to maximize tax savings for these different clients.
Right now, we're in the middle of tax season, and obviously, every year it gets more complicated and a little bit more difficult for consumers or individuals to file their taxes. What has changed the most about the IRS, and how does that impact tax filers?
The IRS, it's almost like they've been non-existent. A client would have a very small likelihood of success trying to contact the IRS with any issues. I know they've added more agents, but I haven't seen any changes. So getting help from the IRS is next to impossible. Tax pros, we have other ways to contact the IRS. We have special lines, but the tax laws are getting more complicated, and it's really difficult for a consumer. I don't know how a consumer would do their own taxes these days, especially if they're younger and haven't had much experience. The IRS isn't going to help them too much.
What is the biggest difference a tax filer can experience when using a tax professional to file their taxes for them versus a do-it-yourself software?
Oh, it's well, do-it-yourself software is basically it starts off with an interview and asks clients questions, and a client may not even understand the question, but has to keep going on. And a lot of times there are certain assumptions made with these online self-preparing sites. For example, a client may end up by paying use tax on purchases made in another state, or say from an online company when they don't need to. They're not maximizing state deductions. Maybe their state allows deductions for apartment rentals, and these online services don't really do a good job with that. Also, a client may not know what they need. If they deal with a pro, we will tell them exactly what they need and ask correct questions to make sure that we know exactly what's going on in their tax life so that we can prepare the return for them. It's much easier to hand over documents and have the return prepared correctly than doing it themselves, I believe.
When you're dealing with new customers or clients, how often do you find yourself catching areas that they could be taking advantage of, whether it's for a deduction or a credit?
Well, almost every single client, but especially the younger, more inexperienced clients who don't really understand the situation yet. For example, they will get a W-2 and think that's all they need. So, a tax professional can take any tax return and look at it and at least ask the correct questions to make sure there's nothing else that we're leaving on the table.
Curtis, about being a Taxfyle Pro, you talked about, wanting to transition away from doing that administrative work at the firm you were running and focusing more on filing taxes.
Yes.
Personally, how has being a Taxfyle Pro benefited you the most?
Some of the things I did not enjoy were, having to collect fees or to set fees and coming up with new business. So with Taxfile, basically I can work my own schedule, and I do work a lot of hours, but that's my choice. And so basically I will get a request for a job, and if I accept that request, I can guarantee I'm going to get all the documents I need, or I'm going to get all the support I need from Taxfyle to get the job done. And that's exactly the part of preparing taxes that I enjoy the most. I have none of the work that I don't like. So it's ideal for me and other accountants who are like me.
We've heard a lot about flexibility and how that's one of the largest benefits that pros experience when they're on our network. What does flexibility mean for you?
Well, it means that I can, so tax season can be a nightmare for a CPA or a tax professional. And with Taxfyle, being a pro, I can manage that. So I know if I have a meeting or something to do, a family gathering, I can work around that. Where if I had my own firm, I probably couldn't, because other people would be making appointments for me, or there could be a software issue, or somebody could be out sick. And with Taxfyle, my schedule is my own. I certainly, once I accept a client, I respect the time frame that I have to follow. But if I couldn't work on a certain day, I don't have to accept a client for that day. And that flexibility means everything in tax season.
That might be hard to believe for some people that, the run of the mill tradition at firms is that tax season comes and it's late hours. Did you imagine that even during tax season you'd have more flexibility to be able to schedule your life around?
No, it's funny. That's an interesting question, because I find that I'm actually doing more work than I would in an average tax season, but it's easier. So I know that's an anomaly, I guess, but and that's really how it is, because I can, because of this flexibility, I feel I can just get a lot of work done. I can, if I'm waiting for items from a client, I can go into the Taxfyle chat, tell the client what I need, move on to another client, and Taxfyle keeps that organized for me. When a client uploads documents, I get notified. I can go back to that client, and it's just a very, very easy way to get a lot of work accomplished.
Thank you, Curtis. And is there anything I may not have asked you about tax season and the impact that, filing taxes has on consumers when it comes to using a pro that you think is important people know?
Well, I guess from a client's perspective, I don't think they could do any better than Taxfyle, because once they submit their documents, it's in our hands. And we're CPAs and we're licensed at this, and they're in good hands. We're going to make sure we do a good job for them, and it's something that takes a lot of worry out of a client, and it just makes it so much easier for them, and it makes it easier for the tax pros. So I guess that's all I can think of.
Thank you, Curtis. I appreciate you having time to speak with me.
Oh, it's been my pleasure.
That was this month's episode of Pro Spotlight. Please be sure to subscribe and follow us on social media for helpful tips, whether you run your own firm, are an accountant, or just want to know a little bit more about how to file taxes. Check out our blog at taxfile.com. Thank you.